In the beginning, darkness was spread across the land with mere specks of light breaking up the tedium that was gaming. Then, a relatively unknown entity called Square started to form, but was bogged down by the darkness until God crafted the ultimate being. Broken and destitute, Square begged this ultimate being to help them bring light to the gaming world. The being took pity on them and declared he would help them with their final attempt at success. This being would come to be known as Hironobu Sakaguchi, and this last attempt at bringing light to the darkness, their Final Fantasy, would spawn fanboys, fangirls, and countless hours of remakes and remasters fueled by the unlimited power of weeb energy. Following the success of the original game, Square released sequels and spin-offs, each introducing new characters, worlds, and gameplay mechanics. The franchise became known for its expansive storytelling, rich character development, and innovative gameplay features. And in 1997, the Ultimate Being created the Ultimate Game, a perfect mixture of technological dystopia, compelling storytelling, and filled to the brim with unlimited potential for content. One of the most beloved and influential video games of all time, the creation of Final Fantasy VII involved the collective efforts of a talented team, groundbreaking technology, and a visionary approach to storytelling. Its impact on the gaming industry is profound, leaving a lasting legacy that continues to inspire and captivate players to this day. I first saw it on game shelves in Okinawa in 1997, and 7-year-old me was immediately captivated by the cover art. I didn't know anything about Final Fantasy as a franchise, but something about this game's dreamy cover really made me want to play it. I wouldn't play it until I was 10, but I think it says something about the time and effort that went into this game's development that the cover art alone left a lasting impression that would have me hunt down this game 3 years after its release. And that's before the internet, so I really had to do my research, which consisted of scouring gaming magazines and visiting gaming shop after gaming shop. I finally found a copy at a thrift store and proceeded to dump over 150 hours into this game. So much so that my parents had to physically remove my gaming systems at the time so I could focus on school. That being said, I've wanted to do a review of this game for years, but life happened and I just never got around to it. Combine that with my own self-doubt, previous failures to start his channel, and the host of much more talented YouTubers already having done countless hours of reviews, I think you can start to see why I'd be hesitant. So now, in a series that may well be my own Final Fantasy, let's take a look at the story, the gameplay, and some other important impacts of this game. This is Final Fantasy VII. The opening bombing mission in Final Fantasy VII immediately sets the stage for the epic adventure that awaits. Well, kind of, but I'll get into that a little bit later. First, I want to talk about my impressions on this opening sequence. Aerith comes out of the alleyway and stops short of the road as the camera pans out to show a bustling urban environment, and pans even further out to show the entirety of the city of Midgar. Well, it isn't until after playing the game and going back that you realize she's likely listening to the spirits within the Mako leaking from whatever that machine is. As the camera pans all the way out, the music swells and the title is displayed over the Shinra building as it begins to zoom into where our protagonist is. As the camera zooms in, the scene is cut with a train moving into the station. I just love this imagery, and much more talented reviewers have talked at length about the significance of trains in Final Fantasy, so I'm just going to move on and gush about something else. But let it be known that we aren't even playing the game yet, and I've already written 300 words about the first minute and a half of the opening. I love this game. Every time I go to play a new save for this game, I get actual goosebumps listening to the opening of this game and get stoked once the OVA transitions into the background music, which really sets the stage for this mission to come. The train pulls into the station where 2 guards are standing watch and are dispatched easily by Jesse and Biggs. Wedge hops off and a 4th character, Barrett, hops off and signals for our main protagonist, Cloud Strife, to join the fun. It should be noted that we aren't given any names at this point. The only context we have is that some kind of operation is going down. Even when we get into a fight, the main protagonist's name isn't even shown, it's just ex-soldier. The fight doesn't really hold your hand either. It immediately throws you into the thick of things without giving you any direction. This was back when game developers actually treated you like an intelligent human being that could figure out things and recognize patterns. Now, it's not to say that this game never holds your hands, because later on, even in this mission, it does give you some insight into some of the controls, but it immediately brings you right back into the game. Now, once you get into the first fight, one of the aspects that I notice is that while the Shinra security forces do single-digit damage to you, Cloud's damage to them is nearly 10 times as much, and he takes them out in one hit. I get it, it's the intro to the game, but it also serves the plot in that it shows us how strong Cloud really is, not to mention how agile he is with a weapon that's almost as tall as he is. Now, in most games, you would start at level 1 and take some time to progress, level 1 to level 2, etc, etc. But not here. No, instead, you immediately level up from level 6 to level 7, showing that Cloud already has some combat experience before this. The game does so much to tell some background of the story without just exposition dumping it down your throat. And even when they do exposition dumps, it feels like a natural part of how people would talk to each other and why. Also, leveling up from level 6 to 7 feels like a cheeky way to show the transition from Final Fantasy VI to 7. I could be reading too much into it, but let's move on. After dispatching the guards, you're finally introduced to the other eco-terrorists, the other members of this operation, and like many other JRPGs, you can elect to change your name. But why would you?
Hold on, your last name is Strife? That's a badass name.
You're also given a bit of lore in that Soldier are the enemy, making you wonder even more about Cloud's background. Is he a double agent? Where did he come from? Why was he a part of Soldier? What were his motivations for leaving? You also get to see his typical demeanor as Biggs goes to introduce himself and Cloud just kind of blows him off. In addition, you learn this is simply a job for him. I think this also gives us a peek into how reckless Cloud can be. I feel a normal mercenary would want to know the ins and outs of a job, including any operatives that might be joining them, but Cloud says screw that. He kind of reminds me of the guy who will do anything for $10.
All right, you guys, I will now do anything for $10. Who's got something for me?
I got one. I'll give you $10 if you wear the same pair of underwear for a month.
Pay up. Actually, you owe me 20.
Ew. Here's 50. Go change your underwear.
I have so many questions, but there's not time to ask as the group's leader shows up and admonishes the team for grouping up. Now, there is a bit of fourth wall breaking here, like I mentioned earlier, where Barrett explains how to run, but immediately after throwing you out of the immersion, you're given a quick glance at the Mako reactor that's looming over the area, which, for me, pulled me right back into the game. Now, I might be biased, but I just really love the backgrounds of this game, and I don't think it's controversial, and I don't think I'll ruffle any feathers with this comment, but the game's visuals are honestly still stunning to this day. The pre-rendered backgrounds are detailed and atmospheric, capturing the gritty aesthetic of the dystopian city of Midgar. The character models, while polygonal, are full of charm and personality, effectively conveying emotions and expressions. The cinematic cutscenes during the missions are particularly impressive. The attention to detail in these sequences is astounding, with dynamic camera angles, dramatic lighting, and smooth animations. These movements truly showcase the game's graphical prowess and contribute to the immersive storytelling. Okay, enough gushing, let's move on. Cloud and his eco-terrorist co-workers are thrust into a high-stakes operation to sabotage the Shinra Electric Power Company's Mako reactor. Now, you get a little bit of exposition while the crew attempts to break into the security doors, and it gives you a bit of insight into why this group is doing what they're doing. But it doesn't feel so much like an exposition dump as it feels like what somebody might talk about while they're just waiting. The reactors are essentially bleeding the planet of a finite resource from the lifestream, and refining the lifestream into Mako energy, which the electric company uses for power for the citizens of the city and for the world. In the elevator, Barrett again tries to explain what they're doing, but is met by Cloud's indifference. I got the feeling at first that Barrett simply doesn't trust Cloud not to betray them and is trying to convince him of what they're doing is right, and in doing so, gain a powerful ally. But upon revisiting, I get the feeling that Barrett is actually trying to convince himself. Bear with me for a moment, but throughout the game, Barrett shows that he's unsure of what he's doing is in the best interest of the people, and of his daughter. He knows that Shinra must be stopped as they've done countless harm to countless numbers of people, including hurting his family and loved ones years ago. But he also knows that Shinra has no real qualms about hurting people who've literally done nothing to them. You'll get a little bit more of a glimpse of this later on in the story, but it's still worth mentioning here. The mission continues with infiltration, as you navigate through the reactor's interior, overcoming obstacles and avoiding security patrols. The sense of tension and urgency is palpable as you work against the clock to escape the reactor after setting the bomb. I'll note here that the combat in Final Fantasy VII is turn-based, utilizing the Active Time Battle System, or ATB system. The introduction of the ATB gauge adds an element of strategy, requiring you to think strategically and make tactical decisions in real time. Each character has unique abilities and limit breaks, which adds depth to the combat and keeps things exciting. But also, when fighting a boss or on a time limit, this system really adds to the tension. The timer in this level in particular does not stop just because you get into a fight, so you really have a sense of urgency. I'm a little late, but the opening bombing mission also introduces the materia system, which is a vital aspect of Final Fantasy VII's gameplay. By equipping materia, you can harness powerful spells, abilities, and summons, providing a wider range of customization options. Experimenting with different combinations adds a layer of depth and personalization to the gameplay experience. Certain enemies are weak against certain types of magic, so it makes exploring and strategizing prior to every major fight even more valuable. Once you reach the innermost section of the reactor, Cloud has a voice speaking to him which tells him to be cautious as this is no ordinary reactor. You'll learn more about why that is later, but for now, once the bomb is set, you're set upon by a gigantic robotic scorpion? Anyway, each attack takes a chunk out of your HP, in stark contrast to the small-time guards and robots you fought thus far. After you destroy the boss, you have 10 minutes to escape the reactor. Now, I've never had any issues getting away in that time frame, but I was curious to know what happens if you don't make it. All the things that we've spoken about thus far, the game mechanics, the story, and the characters truly make this escape tense. Not to mention, the background music is cut with alarms going off, and every fight you get in from here on has the timer looming in the top right of the HUD. For me, I was vested in Cloud's backstory. Why was he in Soldier? Why is he so strong? Or the crew? How did they get their start? Why does Barrett have a gun for an arm? Where do we go from here? I wanted to escape this reactor because now I had an emotional connection to the characters. After 10 minutes of gameplay, I had an emotional connection to these characters.
This is called theming.
Look, I've gushed enough. The game's great and it only gets greater from here. After you've backtracked through the reactor, a cinematic of it blowing up plays, and that's it. The main part of the mission is over. You can take a sigh of relief and head back to the base. Now, I didn't realize just how bad the damage was when I was a kid playing through this originally, but taking a look at this scene, you can see the destroyed reactor in the background and the piles of debris all around. You can really see just how much damage this motley crew has done with one explosion and careful planning.
Hey guys, my gun wasn't even loaded for the whole mission. We would have got royal.
I think the original game did a great job of showing the destruction, even in other areas in the city as you're walking through and after you meet Aerith. I will also give credit where credit is due. The remake really showed the extent of that damage. And maybe it's because you're just able to walk around in 3 dimensions and really see some of the frightened faces that people are wearing. But still, I'm giving credit to this game for doing such an amazing job with the limited resources that they had. As Cloud is heading out of the sector, he runs into Aerith, from whom the player can choose to purchase a flower, or be as dismissive as any other time in the game thus far. It's interesting that they focus so much on this flower girl so early. Maybe she plays a part in the story later on. But what's truly interesting is that unlike the men running around scared shitless, she gets knocked over in the chaos, brushes herself off, and calmly speaks with Cloud. She's not freaking out like literally everyone else. This 5-second interaction truly shows her strength of character. Here you see somebody who, in just 5 seconds, portrays to the entire audience just how strong they are, how resilient they are. To me, I'm wondering, what has she gone through that's just made her so nonchalantly chill in the aftermath of a giant explosion? After the interaction, Cloud is accosted by several armed guards, making him late to the train. He fights most of them off, but is then cornered. With nowhere to go, he decides enough is enough and jumps off the platform to catch his train, leading to the end of the scene. It's an interesting piece of poetry that the mission starts on a train and ends on another. I'm not a game developer, I'm just an enjoyer of games, but to me, this is how you write an opening to your game. By the end of the mission, I was already hooked and I wanted to know where the story was going from here. Were we going to continue blowing up reactors? Was this going to be a Star Wars-esque story where the rebels defeat the evil empire and install a new government? Were we ever going to see the Flower Girl again? All of these elements were masterfully crafted, and I absolutely adore things like how the music scores really set the tone of a scene, or how a character's motivations are displayed in just a few short lines of dialogue. Speaking of the music, the sound design in Final Fantasy VII's opening bombing mission is nothing short of exceptional. The background music, composed by the legendary Nobuo Uematsu, sets the tone for each scene, intensifying the suspense and capturing the grandeur of the mission. The score seamlessly transitions between haunting melodies and adrenaline-pumping tracks. I mean, listen to this and tell me you're not ready for a fight. The sound effects are also meticulously crafted, from the echoing footsteps in the opening to the powerful sound of explosions. The attention to detail immerses you further into this world, making every action feel impactful and significant. I enjoyed this game, and I really hope you've had fun joining me in this stroll down memory lane. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like or a comment. If this is received well, then we'll look at the next part of our Final Fantasy VII review series, where we'll delve more into the story and the characters that have made this so memorable for so many. Anyway, have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you next time.